So over the past few weeks, even the past few months, we've been getting a metric ton of comments, of Instagram messages, of even private website messages asking us to address the elephant in the room. What is going on with Jeep? You know, it's something that obviously we have Jeep News here. We talk a lot about, and we just can't ignore all these issues that are going on right now. And in today's video, we are going to finally address the question, is Jeep really dead? So we're going to get started today. This is going to be kind of a different style of format. Maybe lose the timer, let the clock fly out the window, just talk about some things. I've written some notes down here. I've got almost 3 pages of notes, and Ryan and I are just going to chat because most of the time off camera, we chat about these exact same things, and perhaps we do it for a few hours. Because not only do our livelihoods depend on Jeep and its future, but it also depends on a lot of you guys for watching this video. So we've got a lot to cover today. We're gonna try and answer a lot of the questions, a lot of messages that we've been getting. So maybe put this video down in your cup holder or on your phone mount and listen to it on the way to work. We're gonna try and do a kind of podcast style, you know, where we're just talking, we're trying to get to the root cause of this, but we've got a couple talking points, and what we wanna hear about in the comments is some of your talking points as well. We wanna keep it kind of a healthy conversation. I'm gonna get into this pretty bad and probably rip into some things into this, and I wanna give you the experience of having owned every Wrangler since before they were Wranglers, CJ7s, YJs, everything all the way up through. So we're not coming at this from an unbiased opinion. We're obviously biased because we are Jeep fans, but I think as Jeep fans, we might even be more upset than someone in the regular opinion. So this is gonna be a fun one, and I'm gonna ask you one more request. We're gonna do a change.org petition to get a conversation with Jeep's marketing team. So we'll put the link down below. See how many of you guys can sign it to see if we can actually we can get a pizza party meeting with Jeep corporate marketing after this. We would love that. So without further ado, Dirt Road Creds episode today, is Jeep dead? The first thing I wanted to start in this video is a question that you might have to ask yourself. This is a subjective question. When did Jeep's problems begin? And that is very, very subjective. And I'm not talking about problems with quality, talking about this, that, and the other. I'm talking about the problems that they're having as an overall organization. I looked through, and I'll pull it up, just a brief history of Jeep, and it's kind of funny. I forgot some of the ownership. It seems like Jeep has transferred over ownership every 10 years. So it's like Willys Overland, Kaiser Jeep, American Motors, AMC, Chrysler, Daimler, Fiat was the most recent, and then Stellantis owns Jeep because of the merger between Fiat Chrysler and Peugeot, which is a French auto manufacturer. So under Stellantis's purview, they have owned it effectively, I think it was January of 2016. On the internet, they actually say it's like a curse. Jeep's history is marked by a series of owners that have struggled, giving it the Jeep curse. So a little bit interesting to see that each owner has had it for about 10, 15 years before it transfers ownership, and then they say, here, you play with it now, you deal with it. So right now, Stellantis owns Jeep, or they own the entire group there, and they have owned it since 2021. Subjectively, that's when I think these problems started. There were a lot of outside problems, not just with Stellantis at that time. You guys know the world was very turbulent back in 2021, and I think that had some effect on it, but I also think that it had an effect on a lot of businesses to maybe make their pockets a little bit deeper, if you guys know what I'm saying. I think a lot of things that could have changed or could have been controlled, they were definitely changed with profitability in mind, especially having a brand new company. You've got a brand new company there. You want to show your shareholders some profit. You want to show your company what you can do. So I think Stellantis buying it in 2021 is kind of where we started to see more of a change, more of a bigger change. And now I say that for a few different reasons. So in 2021, we had a wide variety of options for our Jeep Wranglers and our Gladiators. You could get a diesel engine, a 392, a 2-liter, a 3.6, e-torque, manual, automatic, 2 doors, 4 doors, Gladiators, basically anything you wanted. Any hardtop, any configuration for the soft top, tan interiors, black interiors, leather, custom, this, that, and the other. You could option out your Jeep exactly the way you wanted it to. Towards 2022, when I ordered my Jeep, when I ordered my Jeep and my dad ordered his Willys, some of those options started going away. And I kind of saw the writing on the wall with that. So we decided to order our Jeeps, get every option that we wanted, and we got them for a very reasonable price. I actually had an MSRP pulled up. It was a 2022 Extreme Recon, and the MSRP with all sorts of things added was only $61,000. So prices have definitely increased since then, but there was a lot of options that were removed. So I think the problem started when they removed a lot of these options from Jeep owners and the prices increased. So rather than you getting more for what you're paying for, getting more options, you are getting less choice for more cost. That's problem one. So problem one is there. I won't get into this topic too much because I don't want YouTube to maybe censor the video, but there was a global pandemic during that time, which caused different supply chain shortages, different parts being unavailable, different brands that couldn't get things in, but it also did one huge thing, and that was change supply and demand. I and Ryan both worked at an automotive dealership at the time, and what we saw happening at dealerships, it was insanity. I mean, it was nothing to get $20,000, $25,000 over for certain models that were rare, were limited, you didn't get many of. There was a very big play-in or buy-in from a lot of dealerships that could really utilize the situation to their best benefit. You know, if you want this red cup right here, 1,000 people want it, and I've only got 2 of them, I can charge whatever I want for this cup. And that's what was happening during this time. So you had hyperinflation of some of these products and the brands, and probably a really good profitability time for both dealerships and Stellantis. Now, Stellantis wasn't seeing all that profit at the dealership side, but they were getting units cranked out pretty quickly. So they could get them built once they had all the parts, get them to a dealership lot, and they were pretty much sold when they were there. So that was kind of the start of it during that whole period. So one reason I do think that they removed a lot of those options was to speed up the build. So especially from 2022 into 2023, we saw a huge change in the amount of options that you could get, as well as how much they streamlined it. 2023 was the first year that we actually saw base cluster, the actual speedos in there all turned to orange. So they were kind of trying to slim some things down a little bit, only giving you the option to add certain features if you had a certain trim. So they kind of limited a lot of things, removed color match flares, removed a lot of options. And I think during that time, what it did was streamline the builds. There was less options, which ended up giving quicker cash to Stellantis. They could get these things sold, and they didn't have to go through a full custom shop to build them. I think as the years progressed as well, that just maybe turned into more of their motto, you know, remove a lot of these options, kind of just give them almost a cookie cutter Jeep, let them pick colors and a couple other things, and just give that to them. And that was a huge difference for Ryan and I, especially going from a brand that you could really get exactly what you wanted. So I do think that that was kind of the beginning of the problem. I think there was a short-term grab for profitability, and it caused a lot of long-term damage. So I think a lot of brands are suffering from that right now. I know a ton of dealerships are. Ryan, you and I both know the ones that charge 20, 25, 30 grand over. They hurt a lot of people during those times. A lot of people walked in, walked right out. We'll never buy a vehicle from them again. So I wonder how bad it gets when it comes to people remembering, because, you know, remember, one ticked off person is going to tell 100 people, and one happy person is going to tell 5. So getting ticked off, feeling like you're getting burned, or paying too much for what you received, modern day folks, we don't like that, especially when you have the internet to start going on there and complaining about. But Ryan, give us some of your thoughts, grab on the mic and let us know under this one.
Yeah, I just remember working at the dealership, and it was weird. It was weird how many vehicles we were selling at the price that they were. Not our dealership specific, but it was just like across the board. We just couldn't figure out how some dealerships were getting away with some of these upped costs and stuff. So it was definitely interesting to see, and not to throw you under the bus, but you definitely saw that the market was hot for selling certain vehicles, and, you know, taking advantage of it was the right thing to do at the time, because you're not going to get deals like this anymore.
But either way, you know, this is kind of the start of the problem, and like I just told you guys, this is very subjective, right? So some people can say this problem started 20 years ago with the start of the JK 4-door, whatever that was. You know, you might look at it as a different era where it started, but right now, we are looking at a different ownership that began right around the same period. And for us personally, that's kind of where we started to see things really taking a shift. And I think it's catching up right now. I think that's the problem that a lot of people are feeling. A lot of legacy owners, people that have owned, I mean, myself, I've probably owned 25 Wranglers and Gladiators at this point. The current situation, that is topic number 2 here. What is the current situation of the Jeep market? And this one's really hard because there is such, I would say, like a mess, Ryan. It's pretty bad. So the abundance of inventory is the biggest talking point right now. I actually had it pulled up here. Let's see. Maybe I can pull it up. It was the daily trading number. So it was the 2023 Wrangler Inventory, and I'm all in caps too, so you can pull this up here. And it was saying that there was something like, I want to say 200 days of 2023 Wrangler inventory in stock. Now what that means is like they have enough to sell on average what they did. So if you sell 20 Jeeps a day on average, you have 200 days worth. But this was 200 days worth of 2023 Wranglers. Now add that with 2024 Wranglers, which I'm sure have probably close, if not more, of the daily average value on there. So you're talking, I heard one person say almost 2 years worth of inventory sitting on dealership lots. That's a lot of inventory. I'll be honest. I mean, I know I say that a lot, but the dealerships are very, very much so struggling with that. I'll be honest with you guys, to see the amount of inventory, even here locally, going from such a drastic change of 1 or 2 Jeeps on the lot to 40 Wranglers on the lot and not moving for a year or two, it's pretty incredible. And I think that has a lot to do with things. So dealers aren't selling these even at discounted prices. I mean, you guys are no fool to this. I look around all the time on dealership lots, Auto Trader, especially our partner Dan Cummins. They're discounted 10, 12, 13, 15 grand, 7,500 off for the EVs, and they're still not selling. That's a red flag. I've never seen Jeeps have that much of a discount over the years. They've never really given discounts to Wranglers, especially Wranglers because that's all they had, but now Gladiators, because the biggest argument is that they hold their resale value so well, so we don't need to give you a discount here, you know. And for us to see 10, 12, $15,000 off depending on where you're going, and that much inventory, it's kind of a double whammy. You have a lot there. They're not selling even at this crazy discount, which means 2 things. The price is too high and people just aren't buying right now. I mean, I think you got to reevaluate what you're doing if you're seeing that much inventory and people aren't taking you up on it, especially 2 years ago when people were paying $25,000 over. So the one thing that I also was going to talk about too, so the prices I would say have really peaked in the past 2 years. Now I have pulled a Carfax up of a used 2022. It was an unlimited Rubicon. It had extreme recon, all that stuff on it. The total price was $61,000, so $61,655. Now if I start to look around at a comparable Rubicon X with the same features, we're in the 70s. So we're in the 70 ranges, and back then, that's when I built my 22 out. The MSRP was $59. I think I paid $53 or $54. And I got dual top group, extreme recon, color match fenders, front camera, power seat, not power seats, the heated seats, heated steering wheel, the whole works. Now to get that similar Jeep, you can't even order it first off because you couldn't add those options together. You can't get color match fenders or the front. You can't do some of these things. You had to go to the Rubicon X. It would probably be about $10,000 more, even with discounts, and that's 2 years newer. So 2 years newer, we got wireless CarPlay, which we already added a ton in our old videos. We got curtain airbags, a full float rear axle, but we got a $10,000 price increase in 2 years. It's pretty incredible. That's a pretty high increase, and people are not taking that lightly. I think that there was a good amount of time where you could get those sort of prices. People were paying them. They were, I got to get a Jeep. But now people are really evaluating once you start pushing that up into a territory of like a luxury BMW. I mean, Ryan, you can price out BMWs. You can get really expensive loaded up Broncos, Bronco Raptors, all sorts of things for the same price point. And arguably maybe less issues or more options. So it's kind of hard because as you price yourself out of the market, diehard Jeep people start looking at other options. And I think that's what's going on a little bit right now. But the other thing that was going on and what caused this current situation is that a lot of dealerships, especially in our area, were restricted to only stocking the hybrid model. So the dealerships could only stock a hybrid model of the Wrangler if that's what was available. This was due to, it was like the California Air Resource Board, a couple carb emissions, all that fun stuff. But you basically held Jeep dealerships and said, you guys could order whatever you want in the past. Now we've simplified the ordering process, given you less options, less engines, and now you can only stock 4xEs. So people coming in off the street that wanted to test drive a 2-liter, wanted to test drive a 392 before they spend an incredible amount of money could only drive 4xEs. That hurt. That hurt a lot of our local dealerships. And I'll be real with you guys, I think that was a pretty big mistake on their part. I mean, only stocking one option when you can order 5 or 6 different other trims is extremely hard. And I understand the 4xE push, but we'll get into a little bit more about that in a little bit, about how kind of that bit them in the back end after all that happened. The other thing, that's the big elephant in the room, and I know you guys have been saying it, everyone's been saying it, the quality control, and is it that bad? I wanted to ask that sarcastically. Is the quality of the Jeep Wrangler and Gladiator that bad that you're not going to buy it? That's that's the best question to ask. The biggest one that we're talking about here is corrosion. So for you guys just listening to this, I've got two tailgate hinges here that I've actually pulled, one off my 24 and one off my 22. And that's a lot of the time where the corrosion starts, in the hinges, in the bottoms of the doors, in the hoods, all that fun stuff. Now I've got my 22 here, which you can, unless you're listening to this, the back of this is completely bare. Ryan, you can confirm, back of this is completely bare there. It is raw metal. I can see the part stamping on there, and it may be zinc coated or some sort of coating, but that looks pretty bare to me, and especially right up to the edges. What this means is that these Jeeps are painted with the hinges on. They're painted with the hinges on, and they corrode. So I'd like to say that this is a newer issue, but my YJ's door hinges corroded, my TJ's, my JK's. I haven't had a JL long enough. That's sad. I had them for a year or so, but some of those were even starting to bubble at the door hinges. So it's not really an issue that you can say, oh my goodness, how did this happen? We don't know that this is happening. This has been an issue. I understand it, that I'm not the owner and Ryan's not the owner of a $1 trillion company where dollars and cents matter in production, but brand loyalty over the years wasn't affected as bad when a YJ hinges would corrode, because you could pick up a YJ for $89.95 from a dealership brand new. So in 10 years or in 5 years, if the hinges started to rust or bubble a little bit, the Jeep was already paid off. It was $9,000. I know back then that was a little bit more money than it is now, but it wasn't a $75,000 to $100,000 Jeep or even a regular base at $36,000. Now my 24 is a little bit different here, because while it's a little bit changed, there seems to be like a clear film protected in between here. So Ryan, maybe you can get a shot later, but there seems to be either a zinc plated, maybe it's zinc plated, or there's a second layer that's in between here, and I can actually see it peeling up from there. So it's a dissimilar metal that they put in between the hinge to hopefully help prevent it, but I can still imagine that that was probably a cheaper solution to do that than to paint all the hinges separately and then put them on the doors. I don't know why they're not doing that. You know, I don't own a $1 trillion company. Ryan doesn't own a $1 trillion company, billion, whatever, how much it is. The cost long-term, damage-wise, to your reputation is a lot more expensive than it is to fix these from the get-go. I don't care what anyone says. I really don't at this point. By letting these corrode, by having a Jeep that costs an extreme amount of money and seeing it bubble around the doors, the hinges, the hood, and all that, it's just not right. You know, and I don't want to bash too hard, but I do. You have to say something, because I think that these hinges should be painted off of the Jeep. I have two of them laying right here, and you could get a nice coat right there. What do you think, Rye? You just had these sitting out. I hate for you guys that can't see. Hopefully you're listening to it, but you get a nice coat of paint on this. And when I painted half doors, guess what we did? We painted the back sides of the hinges as well as underneath, because this isn't the only part that's bare. Underneath this, where it's sitting on the tailgate, is also bare. So corrosion, a huge, massive issue. It is the elephant in the room, and I would say it wouldn't be as bad, like I just told you guys, it wouldn't be as bad if the Jeep's prices weren't as high as they are relatively. So I'll get that one out in the air. We'll get it out in the open. I know everyone's going to rip that one apart in the comments down below, but it's out there. You know, we're talking about it. People are seeing it. Our good friend Steve he's having issues on his, what is it, a 2020 Pumpkin? Yeah. I mean, that's 4 years old. My dad's cowl was already faded on his that we just replaced the other day. The quality, it's there, but it isn't. I know it takes a ton to engineer these vehicles, and I'm not knocking anyone for engineering these, because I can only imagine how much CAD it takes just to design this hinge, Ryan, and have the molds to produce this and forge it and make it work and function. It is a metric ton that goes into building these, but I think they have it to such a good vehicle, and then it's just that last little bit of the cost that would make it a perfect vehicle. I think that's where we're at right now. The recalls, that's another one. The recalls have been pretty bad lately, and it's not on regular Wranglers. I get a lot of over-the-air software updates. Ryan does too. We've been doing a lot of them on the 24s. Some of them in the past, early JLs, remember all those steering stabilizer recalls, track bar welds that were like hollow at the top. There was all sorts of frame recalls in the beginning. You're gonna have that. It's a new frame, it's a new vehicle. They addressed it, they fixed it. The 4xe recalls right now, which was I think all their marbles in one bag. 150,000+ vehicles between the Grand Cherokee and the 4xe Wrangler are part of the recall currently that was released in September. And it basically says to let your battery deplete, don't charge it, and let it sit outside because there's a risk of some software issues and some other very bad issues that are going on with that. That's really rough. To push 4xe as hard as they did, to push everything the way that they did into that lineup, into what all the features were, to add the extra cost, and then to just be continuously hit with these problems. I know there's a lot of 4xe owners on this channel. I know it. And I'm not bashing you guys. I think it's a great concept. But I think it's very hard to get people on board when the recalls are this significant. You know, I think that, you know, spending another $7,500, $10,000 for that vehicle to get the hybrid aspect out of it, which I think is fantastic. I think Ryan and I could both use a vehicle like that in our channel and, you know, have the plug-in power, have this, that, and the other. But yeah, here's the article. Car and Driver, Jeep recalls 154,000 Wrangler and Grand Cherokee plug-in hybrids. And it's from 2020 to 2024. And in fact, the letters are supposed to go out October 17th. So they'll be coming out a day after this goes live. So you guys, if you're part of that recall, it just says the issue stems from the high voltage battery internally failing and possibly causing a fire while the SUVs are driving or parked. So they're saying don't park it next to a building, don't park it in your house. And when I had EVs, which I owned one, I never parked it in my house, inside the house anyways, just because it's a giant battery, and I don't know, I just get kind of queasy about it. But yeah, I think that's really hurting. That's part of the current situation and why it's kind of having so many issues. You know, I'll be 100% transparent. I feel like a lot of Jeep corporate and a lot of their leadership has really just forgot about the enthusiasts that have brought them to this point. I think that a lot of the guys that are watching this video, even if you're a first-time Jeep owner or a long-term Jeep owner, I think you guys can agree to that sentiment, is that, you know, the Wrangler as a brand represents so much. It represents freedom. It represents the outdoors, a lifestyle. You know, the Jeep is arguably one of the biggest and hottest aftermarket vehicles that you can purchase. And I think that rather than focusing on that, they've almost tried to dabble in enticing a new market segment to get into Jeep Wranglers. But then again, the price point doesn't allow that new market segment to buy the new Wrangler. So it's a bold strategy, Cotton, and we're gonna have to see how that one pays off. But no, I think that Jeep corporate needs to kind of realize who their audience base is, and maybe they'll get some pointers from this channel, because I do know that they watch this channel as well. And I'm not saying anything about the engineers, so I want you guys to know that there is a huge difference between corporate and the guys producing your Jeeps. Can you imagine designing a Wrangler, designing the hinges, designing the whole part, and saying, hey, we need to paint the back of this or it's going to corrode? Corporate, they grab a bean counter and they say that's going to add another $1.20 per hinge times 1 million Jeeps is this much. Can't do it. Can't do it. Don't care what you say. We'll deal with it later. We'll deal with it in 5 years when it causes an issue. Who knows? You know, whatever. That is what we're saying. So we know in a lot of these meetings, because Ryan and I have been in a lot of corporate meetings, not with Jeep per se, but there's a lot of cost-cutting strategies and a lot that goes on above your pay grade that can't trickle down. I'll give you a cool story about that, because I do want to say something. You know, back in the day, so back in early, probably 2001, 2002, there was a group of Jeep engineers called the Lunatic Fringe, and they were the original designers of the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. So it would have been two-door Rubicon that came out in 2003. There's a little backstory. There was some things, some articles that were pulled up here, and I'll actually Google it just so I can pull it up here. It's the Jeep Lunatic Fringe, and I think their story is just so incredible, and it kind of hits home to what I was just talking about. So the Lunatic Fringe was a group of enthusiasts of Wrangler owners who were team members in the design group for the Wrangler, who would put out their own money to design and birth the Rubicon. Their own money, their own credit cards, their own time, their overtime, which was free. They were designing it, producing it, and saying, we know that this is going to work. We know that the off-road enthusiast wants a more built-up Wrangler. It's never been done before. We've had Laredos, we've had Renegades, we've had all these things. Let's do one, locking differentials, air lockers in those, a 4-to-1 transfer case, all these features. People will buy it. What do you think corporate said to that? Nah, it's not going to work. Guys, look. We've done the market surveys. We've done a research poll group. It's not going to work. You know, I don't know if that's exactly how it was, but they did it, celebrating 20 years of it, and they released a Rubicon And I want to get the exact quote, but I think it was like a few thousand of them. 3,000. The brand's marketing team predicted that Jeep would sell 3,000 in the first year, and then sales would fall off a cliff after that. That was Jeep's corporate marketing team telling these engineers who had just done this. I think they sold those first 3,000 in the first few days. I want to tell you that. And I know I don't want to sound too heated right now, but it just is a case in point of these marketing groups and these corporate levels that do not listen to their audience. They do not listen to their people that are down in the dirt, the boots on the ground, and they don't care. And it's really hard anymore because I think Jeep needs to take a good look at who their audience is, what they're buying, what they're doing, and figure it out. Stop worrying about so many things, about being this, that, and the other, about having the perfect Instagram presence, the perfect this presence, and just build Wranglers. That's the brand that we know and love. These guys were doing it 20 years ago. It's the 20th anniversary of the Rubicon, which is probably one of the best-selling Wranglers ever produced. It's their highest profit point. It's their highest margins, their highest value Jeep, and it came from a group of guys that were probably yelled at and told that they couldn't do what they were doing. And that is exactly what we get upset about, because Ryan and I have been in that situation so many times where we're told how wrong it is, how it's not going to work, and then when it blows up, what, did we tell you so? You know, I'm sure these guys got a pizza party after they were done with this. So I don't want to go on a rant about that, but I really feel like they need to listen to that crew, that group of guys, because I know they're still at Jeep, and they need to figure it out and let those guys talk to us, talk to the audience, and really get it dialed in. So that's the current situation. That is what we're dealing with Jeep. It seems like it's a brand that's lost its identity, although its owners haven't lost their identities. It seems the brand as a whole lost it, but the ownership is still hanging on to what they think is a Jeep and what they know a Jeep really is. So
yeah, so you told me that Lunatic Fringe story today, and I just couldn't believe it because it just sounded too close to home with us. You know, yeah, it's, you got the guys that are putting their blood, sweat, and tears into something that they're passionate about and believe in, and they put their money into it. And yeah, they probably got scolded for it, and you know, it turned out to work in their favor in the long run here. But maybe that's what Jeep needs to get back to. Maybe they need to kind of listen to their, you know, their core audience, the people that are making the vehicles, and you know, obviously save a dollar here and there and figure that out. But I don't know, just they're the guys building the Jeeps. They're the guys that care about it. So
60,000. I just read it lower on here. 60,000 Rubicons per year. They're 30% of Jeep Wrangler sales are the Rubicon trim. Yeah. So they went from being scolded using their own personal credit cards and parts out of probably the bins in the back to 30% of Wrangler sales. It's just insane. 60,000 times 20 years, it's over 1.2 million of those Jeeps that they were told are going to fall flat on their face and it's not going to work. So sometimes, you know, and I'm not going to say that's like a lottery story either, because that happens far too often, where a lot of these great ideas, and I'm sure a lot of you guys listening, you're either employees, you own companies, you got to listen to these ideas, because a lot of the guys with boots on the ground, they know what they're talking about, and they're the enthusiasts, you know. So obviously all of this is just completely hypothetical, right? How would we fix this, or what would be some tips as long-term Jeep owners, as part of the audience, as I would say hopefully an influential part of the audience with 50,000 plus subscribers, a lot of folks on this channel that seem to have some fantastic ideas and opinions as well. How would we do it? We don't run a billion-dollar company, so I'll start the hypothetical off of that. So I'm sure there's a lot more fun that goes into this. Shareholders, stakeholders, meetings, corporate, circling back, lawyers, legal. We dealt with a little bit of that. Lawyers with another group from JEEP, can't say the word. But yeah, no, we would deal with it a couple different ways. Right now, Ryan and I are both under the impression that there are too many cooks in the kitchen. I think that with a brand that owns over 14 lines, so the Stellantis group, I feel like, and to quote one of the JL Wrangler forums, let me pull them up. Hopefully we can give them a shout out here. And one of the guys said that it was kind of like milking a cow and then using us as hamburgers when we were done. And I feel like that one hit home. You know, a lot of the time, the corporate, the groups that are in charge that don't really understand what's going on, sees that as probably a very profitable lineup. I'm sure the Wrangler makes some decent money. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Wrangler doesn't make any money, you know. But I would see it as a lifestyle brand. I see it as a lot of people buying into it and really getting into the lifestyle and then continuing to be a lifetime purchaser. Like I said, I've owned so many. My dad's owned a ton. We've owned a lot of them. Ryan grew up in the backseat of a TJ Sahara. I grew up in the backseat of a YJ and a CJ7. So like, It's been a long time. You're almost a loyal fan through and through. But right now, they're losing a lot of those legacy customers, I would say. So maybe they're gaining some of the new, the hip crowd, the 4xe, the cool stuff, the colors. Maybe the newer folks, the guys that are first-time Jeep owners, guys and gals, maybe they're jumping in and being interested in it because they don't see what's been going on over the past, I don't know, maybe 5 years, like we said, 5 years, and even longer than that, what's going on. And they're not as weathered to the storm as we are with the Jeep brand as a whole. And I'm glad because they get to see it from a fresh light, but then I also don't want them to be disappointed 5 years from now if their hinges start corroding, if they start to have problems happening like that. I don't want that to see happen either. So I do feel like they're losing a bit of touch with their legacy ownership group. I think they need to hit some more of their roots, some grassroots. I think they need to rely more on the lunatic fringe, on that group of serious off-roaders. But then I also think that the group of serious off-roaders need to interact better with the new owners, because I do think that's a huge problem. Ryan and I can attest to that. I think there's like this butting heads of like, you don't use your Jeep every day and you need to, or I use my Jeep every day and you're a poser and you're a mall crawler and you're this and that, but we both own the same vehicle, so let's make fun of each other. I don't understand it, so I think Jeep needs to somehow mediate the gap in between them and give options for everyone, right? Like make that crowd happy and make the other crowd happy, which is almost like making two sides of a coin flip and land on the same time, but it can be done if you're careful. So if we ran Jeep, what would we do? What would we start with? We want to try and get the trust back. I mean, I think at this point, a lot of folks that have been in the Jeep industry or owned a lot of Jeeps have lost a lot of trust in the brand, and I see it in our comments almost daily. Actually, it is daily, that says, I'll just keep my old Wrangler. I can't pay these prices, nor do I want the quality that comes with it. So they're not getting that legacy ownership to pick up another Wrangler. They're almost keeping the old one. And those guys aren't really paying to have them serviced either, so it's not really a benefit to the dealership or Mopar Stellantis as a whole when it comes to the parts. So I think they need to re-entice and re-engage the ownership that is holding on to their old Jeeps and give them a reason to come back and buy a new one. And the same token, give new owners a really good leg up or a good start to buy a Wrangler and be happy with it and have a good time with it and not have to worry about these little issues, just to make it that next step and make it perfect, or just vouch for your brand. You know, so I think the first thing, we're going to talk all about this, but the marketing, giving the audience what they want. That seems to be such a hard thing to do for Stellantis. I don't know why. But Ryan and I will attest that we're like the news. I mean, Ryan and I are Jeep news. We're releasing when packages are coming out, when they're removed, when colors are coming out. Hell, we were the only ones to actually have Purple Rain as a real color. Ryan, we went out to Detroit, showed the actual color, got camera footage of it, and posted it up, and people said, thank you, now I know what I'm ordering. I think as a whole, marketing, how hard would it be to pull a brand new Jeep off of the assembly line that is in every color, take it into a clean shop like this? I'm sure they have the funds to build a shop like this. Take some photos, do a walk around video, and post it up. How hard would that be? I mean, it's not rocket science to do it, and it would give your audience a way to see what comes with a package, what comes with the color, what it actually looks like. And even if it's not the perfect lighting, if it's 6,000K or 5,000K, put a little asterisk underneath and say, lighting and image may look different in other conditions. That way, if some person wants to say, that doesn't look exactly like the video, they have a way to get out of it. But just put it out there and say, this is high velocity. This is bikini. You can see what the color looks like instead of doing these renders online and just having folks kind of guess what they're buying. I think that they need to start focusing on those. Keep it simple, stupid. The KISS method, it works. It's simple, but it helps the audience actually get to see what they're buying. I think step number 2, though, I mean, we're kind of doing them in like different steps here. Getting those quality issues controlled. I know off the factory line, seeing the issues with the hinges, the issues with the corrosion, that has become a top tier issue right now. I would say that corrosion is probably one of the top of the list there. I actually know of dealerships that are probably a year or two out that have body shops of fixing corrosion issues. They're that far booked that that's all they're hitting up. If it were us, and I know this would cost some money, but I would do some regional dealerships or dealerships in every state that would become hubs for the corrosion fix issue and just have the Jeeps come in and get them fixed. I know that's going to cost. I know that's not going to be cheap to have these Jeeps come in and get the hinges replaced, doors replaced, sanded, smooth, fixed up. but I think that the cost of fixing the problem is a lot cheaper than the cost of the damage reputation. I know there's no way to completely encapsulate that, but I do think that fixing the corrosion issue, or at least making it right, it's hard because it costs a ton of money, but I think on the long run, as a brand, it will do much more in value. So my goal with that would be to start up a couple of those collision centers, do a couple in each state, do by region, and just have them fix the corrosion issues. Dump some money into each of them so that they have the proper paint, they have the proper parts, maybe design a different shim or paint the backs of these, figure it out, and then have them just authorized and do it. Just fix the corrosion. I don't know, Ryan, it's such a hot topic issue, so that's what we would do for that. The other thing that I would like to see, we talk about as a corporate level, trying to encompass both the true off-roader, the hardcore guy, and the new Jeep owner, or someone that wants more of the luxury lifestyle and doesn't want to take their Jeep off-road, because obviously there is a seat for every butt and there is a Jeep for every driver. There's someone that wants to take theirs off-road every day, and there's someone that doesn't want to take it off-road but wants to enjoy the Sky One Touch or take the top and doors off. It doesn't faze me either way. I'm just glad that you're in a Jeep Wrangler, and I think Jeep needs to realize that as well. I think the serious off-roader wants a 2-door or a 4-door with some beefed up axles, steel wheels and tires, plastic bumpers, and stripped down inside so they can modify it and keep it at a low price point. And then the guys that want a high altitude, a Rubicon, a loaded up Jeep that isn't going to see as much off-road prowess, but wants it to be comfortable for them to drive to work, for them to go back and forth to different places. There's a different Jeep for each of those individuals. And I think Jeep needs to focus on a little bit more of that off-road side as well as the luxury side, but kind of make them both their own entity, if you know what I mean. So in the high altitude, I don't know, throw in some ventilated seats, throw in some different lighting, throw in some different features of that. Maybe throw some ambient lights on the inside that are RGB for that crowd. But then throw it for the off-road crowd too. Give them steel wheels and Dana 50s or 60s in the rear and let them build it up to exactly what they want. But then both crowds are happy and they both are still in a Wrangler. So you've now got everyone, instead of just getting maybe the high dollar sales or the low dollar sales and then no repeat customers for the true off-roaders. So that's something I would focus on that. The other thing for dealerships, they are hurting bad. They're hurting, they're sitting there. They're selling a decent amount, but it's nothing like the other brands, like the Fords, the GMs, Chevys, and that. Jeep is having a hard time selling. I would try and initiate a little bit of a change to when it comes to dealerships. So my wife actually looked at a Tesla. We looked at Tesla in the buying process, and it's kind of done like a boutique. So you go on Tesla, you can build them out, you can play with them, and then you go to their boutique or their ordering location. You can sit in one, you can test drive one, you can take a look at it, and then you order it in the colors that you want, and it shows up the exact way you want it. But it's not sitting there. The thing is, it comes in like 3 or 4 weeks, or they'll find another one in the area and bring it down to you. We talked to a local friend of ours, Anthony. He bought a 6-speed manual Rubicon, which is kind of like already a rare unicorn, from our local dealership here, and he couldn't even test drive it. The only thing they had was 4xe. So it's like, hey, test drive this 4xe, and if you like it, then yeah, we can order you a 6-speed manual with a different engine, different transmission, different gearing. So it's like apples to oranges. I would love to see a Jeep dealership, and this is exactly how we would do it if we had it, have like 10 Wranglers and Gladiators sitting out front of every engine, every gearing ratio, extreme recon, all that stuff. Test drive each of them, figure out what you like color-wise, and then order it exactly the way you want it. So that way there's not 100 of these sitting on the lot that nobody wants. They're coming in, they're ordered, folks are going to come in and pick them up. And if they don't, do like a $500 non-refundable deposit or something. I don't know. That's how we would do it, and I think it would be really neat and give the audience the exact Jeep that they want, the exact options they want, and then maybe add on some new colors too. That's something Ryan and I were talking about too. Maybe give 20 color options. Give like 6 that are standard, the black, white, silver, gray. Give all those colors standard, right? They're like $200, and then have another list of like 15 other color options that were the oddballs. The high velocity, the bikini, the gecko, Inca gold, and then make that a $1,500 option. Make it a $2,000 option. I know I would pay for the exact color that I wanted versus having to wait or get it repainted or wrapped or have to kind of suffer with something I don't really want, but I wanted a different one. So we have a lot of ideas, and I think we'd honestly, I think it'd be neat to sit down with Jeep and talk to them if they don't hate this video too bad. But You know, honestly, guys, we want to bring all this to you because I think we talk about it so much off camera that it only makes sense to talk about it on camera and get your feedback. So is Jeep dead? No, it's not. You know, it's still kicking. It's still there. This isn't like a slam piece. This is just...
No, this is true.
It's just...
yeah, I mean, we're literally finally being open about it and being talking about it.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah, because we talk about it off camera before we shoot every day. Like, what the hell is going on? You know, we talk it... The sad part is, and when we started to do this video, is when we keep talking to other Jeep salesmen, to dealerships, to people outside the community, to B&M offer, to all the people, and they are like, man, Jeep is really, like, you're getting it from every angle, and it's kind of hard for us because our livelihood is Jeep related. I think it's going to take some changes. I know that I'm making this sound very easy, like, oh yeah, I would just sign a couple docs and be done with it, but can you imagine all the legal hoops and crap that they have to go through? I can only imagine, owned by that many companies, that many shareholders, stakeholders, all this junk. I think they need to get back to basics. And if they don't, then it's really going to be hurt. And if not, maybe they'll just sell it again. Jeep seems to be sold off to the highest bidder every few years, 10 years, every decade. And maybe that's the perfect plan. Wait till 2028 when the new Wrangler comes out and then be done with it.
Sell it back to America.
Sell it to somebody else. Yeah, who knows? Maybe DRC Media will throw a bid in, see what happens. Yeah,
we'll flip a bid in.
I'll give you a 392 and a two-door. But no, you know, there's a lot that are changing in the CEO, the CFO, the COO. A lot more alphabet letters combined that make different positions like that. There was some pretty rough forum posts on some of the CEO, FO, all that kind of stuff from just where they came from, who they are. It's global, right? Like this is. They have North American VPs. They have people that work in North America, but I think Jeep is... The American audience is probably a bit different when it comes to Jeeps. Ryan and I brought up a good point. You go overseas to, you know, you're in England, you're in some of these smaller areas, you don't see full-size TRXs, full-size trucks, big Jeeps with lifted tires. It's like not existent. It's Mini Coopers and smaller vehicles. I think you got to get that brand loyalty back, though. It only goes so far. You can be a brand loyalist for a long time and still get burned and never go back. I mean, I'm one of those people, if I get burned by someone a few times, that's it. You know, one time, it's a fluke. Twice, what's going on here? 3 times, that's it. I'll spend my money elsewhere. And on a cup of coffee or at a local Dunkin' Donuts or something like that, maybe that's not as bad, but when you're spending $70K, $50K on a vehicle and it's just not living up to the hype that you wanted it to, especially when you've bought a few more, that gets pretty bad. So, but yeah, let us know down below what you would do to correct Jeep. And maybe we'll get that change.org petition completely run and we'll have a pizza party with Jeep Corporate. We'll provide the pizza. So until next time, though, this has been a lot to talk about. And I'm glad you guys stayed around. Hopefully you stayed around to the end. Maybe the first person to comment, I don't know, make them comment JP 2024. First person to write JP 2024 will send a shirt. Yeah. So drop that down below. First person to watch all the way to the end, you'll get that. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. We're back out in the shop. We're having a good time. And yeah, from Ryan behind the camera, who you got to hear from today, and then from me in front of the camera, we want you to get out there and earn yours.